Hi there, welcome back to the channel. I am Aziz, and if you are new here, this is the place where we dive into AWS, cloud technologies, and infrastructure as code. Today's video is all about something very important, security, especially when working with AWS and GitHub Actions. We will explore how to secure your pipeline without sharing your AWS keys in your source code or pipeline configuration. You don't want to expose those secrets. Instead, we will be using a smart and secure solution that AWS provides, IAM Web Identity Federation. This approach allows your GitHub Actions to assume roles securely without the need for AWS keys. And we will go step by step through creating roles with AWS CDK. Trust me, it's a game changer for your security posture. When you are working with AWS and automation, sharing keys in your pipeline can lead to huge security risks. If those keys get exposed, anyone could gain access to your AWS account and do significant damage. And we definitely want to avoid that. So, what is the solution? Instead of sharing keys, we will use IAM roles with Web Identity Federation. This allows your GitHub Actions to assume the role securely without any keys involved, using a trust relationship. You will see how this fits seamlessly into your workflow with AWS CDK. Here is what we are going to cover in today's video. We will start by creating an IAM role with CDK, walking through every detail so you understand how to configure trust policies for Web Identity Federation. Then we will move on to the GitHub Action workflow, integrating that role into your CI/CD pipeline. If you are interested in learning more about AWS CLI or CDK Bootstrap, I have got other videos that dive deeper into these topics. Feel free to check them out for additional knowledge on how CDK handles CloudFormation behind the scenes or how you can use AWS CLI to interact with your accounts. So here is how our flow works for trusting GitHub Actions into our AWS environment. First step is you create the AWS role, and in this role you mention GitHub as the identity provider, which trusts the assume role call from GitHub Actions to AWS. Once GitHub Actions assumes a role, it will get all permissions assigned to this role and will be able to directly interact with CloudFormation and run the CDK deploy command. One more thing you need to make sure when you create this role is you assign the enough permissions to access the Bootstrap CDK templates. Before you run CDK deploy, you should run CDK Bootstrap from your administrator account, and CDK toolkit CloudFormation template will be already deployed. So when you run CDK deploy, you should have enough permission to access this CDK CloudFormation template and the role assigned to it and all resources that's in this CloudFormation template, the CDK Bootstrapped one. Now we are going to create the role that will be assumed by the GitHub Actions. So navigate to the IAM services and create a new role. In the trusted identity type, you select Web Identity, which refers to the GitHub Actions. And from the list, these are all the identity providers that I have already created. But if you haven't created the token actions GitHub user content yet, you create a new identity and write the provider name token.action.githubusercontent.com. You add the provider. I wouldn't be able to add it because I already have it. So once you add the provider, you will see in the list here. Select this provider, and in the audience, select the sts.amazon.aws.com from the list. GitHub organization. So if you haven't created your GitHub organization and GitHub repo, go create them and grab the details and put them here, because this is the way AWS will trust this specific organization and repo. Once you have them all, click next and back to the roles. I'm not going to create it because I already have one. So continue. The one that already created here is called GitHub Action S3 demo. So the trusted relationship will be as follows. This is the GitHub provider trust with the repo, and the audience is sts.amazon.aws.com. Back to the permissions. The essential role permissions you need for GitHub Actions or any CDK to succeed is basically dependent on CDK Bootstrap. So if you haven't yet started your CDK Bootstrap or you haven't run your CDK Bootstrap command, please follow the Bootstrap video that's in my channel that will let you know what's the meaning of Bootstrap, what you are going to do with CDK Bootstrap. But after you create the Bootstrap CloudFormation template, or basically after you run CDK Bootstrap that will create the template for yourself, you should be able here to mention the CDK Bootstrap role and assign all permission needed for your CDK pipeline to be able to use the CDK role. These are the enough permissions. So once you create them, just say next and save this role. The role name is going to be used in your GitHub repo in the Actions pipeline template. So now after you created the GitHub role or the appropriate role in your AWS environment that will be used by the GitHub repo here, it's the time to create the GitHub action, the deploy action or the deploy template in GitHub Actions. There are actually two main important steps in GitHub Actions to achieve the access between GitHub and AWS without sharing keys. First one is to assume the role that was created for you or that you created in AWS. And when you assume this role, you will get all permissions that you created for this role. And in AWS, you already trusted the GitHub repo to assume this role. When you assume the role, you will be able to deploy CDK. Step is to execute this AWS Actions configure AWS credentials. This one, with assuming this role, will gain the enough credentials or the needed credentials to run the CDK deploy command. This step is not mandatory. You just run it to make sure that it can access the STS and get the caller identity by running AWS STS get caller identity command. So to recap, today we walk through a secure way of integrating GitHub Actions with AWS using IAM roles and Web Identity Federation. By doing this, we have eliminated the need to share keys, significantly improving security in your CI/CD pipeline. We have covered the full process, from creating the role with AWS CDK to deploying it and using it in your pipeline. This is how you can work securely and smartly without exposing any sensitive information. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, don't forget to check out my other content on AWS CLI, CDK Bootstrap, and more security-related best practices. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more cloud and infrastructure as code content. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on future videos. And feel free to leave your questions or comments below. Until next time, keep building and stay secure. See you in the next video.